I know that some in our audience know the finer points of hockey.
The Chris Johnston Show.
We are your friends.
The biggest stories, bringing you inside the game.
What did you hear?
The Chris Johnston Show. Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada's sportsbook.
What is going on?
Here's Chris with your host, Julian McKenzie.
Part of the game.
One of the best things you will see from this past weekend will be all the tributes to legendary Hall of Fame defenseman, former Toronto Maple Leaf, former Detroit Red Wing, Borje Salming, who unfortunately we learned this year is battling ALS. But it was really great to see the Toronto Maple Leafs take the time to honor Borje Salming and for fans around the hockey world to also pay their tributes to him. That was really great to see this weekend.
Yeah, it was special. You know, I was in the building both Friday and Saturday for the two tributes he was a part of. And I have to tell you, I don't recall ever feeling such emotion, I'd say, inside Scotiabank Arena. You know, clearly there's some excitement that comes with playoff games and things like that, where the building's been great, but that was unique. And I think for a lot of people, Julian, you know, I've been following this story closely and was pretty aware of, you know, how quickly the ALS has advanced for Borje, unfortunately, and you know, where he's at. But I think a lot of fans who probably showed up to Friday's game just didn't know that. And so I think initially when you saw him, it was almost just like a gasp, because we're talking about someone who kept himself in incredible shape. You know, Daniel Alfredson, one of the things he mentioned about Borje, said he almost seemed immortal. Just, you know, he was such a tough guy, and he's, you know, obviously remains that way in his battle with ALS, but, you know, it's, you know, he's lost the ability to speak and, you know, is clearly, you know, in a difficult position. So, you know, I think the Leafs did a really nice job, especially on Saturday, honoring him specifically. I loved Sheldon Keefe embracing the moment and starting 6 Swedish players for the Leafs. I just think a small touch of class there. And as much as you can all get wrapped up in matchups and this and that I just thought it was really understanding the moment nice for the organization. And, you know, we're recording this on Monday morning. You know, Borje, I would expect will be at the Hockey Hall of Fame tonight, as 3 members are joining him from Sweden. You know, he's one of 4 current Swedes in the Hall. That number is ballooning to 7 officially on Monday. So it's great that he was physically able to come over from Sweden. He's here with his 4 kids and his wife, Pia, and, you know, hopefully make the best of this weekend, you know, given the challenges he's facing with his health.
100%. And we will get to more Hall of Fame stuff. Also, Vancouver Canucks too. Some World Cup of Hockey news. And of course, it's Monday, so we have Ask CJ. For Borje, though, I'm obviously being a much younger person. Normally, it's you bringing up the age thing. I mean, I don't have any highlights of Borje Salming. I was just wondering, from your vantage point, what was it like maybe seeing him, or any memories you might have?
I don't have specific memories of his playing days. He was even a little bit before my time as a fan, or at least a fan where I can remember games. But, you know, I think what's important to understand about him is that he's a true trailblazer. He's one of the first Europeans to come and play in the NHL, and certainly the first European to become a big star in the NHL. And, you know, he did so in a market like Toronto. And we're talking about a different time in the sense that there was, you know, I think he faced a fair bit of pushback. You know, a lot of Canadians didn't like the idea of Europeans coming to play in the league. And so he faced a lot of physical challenges, you know, dirty plays, players that went out of his way. And he quite literally, even though it was not a main part of his game, had to sort of fight and scrap for his spot over here. And so, you know, we're talking about a defenseman who was perennially, you know, one of the top 5 in voting for the Norris Trophy. So one of the best D-men in the league for several seasons. And he's, you know, having to fight and, you know, was known for blocking shots and that. And so I think, you know, a lot of the respect for him goes to the way he carried himself, the way he's continued to carry himself well beyond his playing days, just a classy gentleman. And he opened a lot of doors for the players that have come behind him. And I think that's where the reverence you see from the Swedish players in particular, because they understand that he paved the way. You know, he was Nicholas Lidstrom's hero. And you know, Nicholas Lidstrom follows him, and now we go down the line, and there's so many great Swedish players. We're going to add more to the Hall of Fame, and with Henrik Lundqvist, I would say is a pretty safe bet for the 2023 class. So, you know, a lot of the great things that have happened in Swedish hockey happened because of, you know, what Borje was able to do. And and then on top of that's his playing legacy. I think his off-ice legacy is just a tremendous guy, was a businessman. And even the way he's handled his battle, I have a lot of respect for how difficult it must be for him and his family to be so open about, his struggles with ALS, but he's launched a foundation to help raise money for ALS in Sweden for research, but also to help out families that are, in need while a loved one goes through treatments and those types of things. So, he's just a first-class guy. He's a Hall of Famer in every sense of the word. And that's also why you see the love for him in the building. Certainly from fans a little older than us that followed the Maple Leafs. I mean, he was a lot of people's favorite player that are, say age 50 and up right now that grew up watching the Maple Leafs.
That's a very good point. Very well said. You did mention Hockey Hall of Fame induction ceremonies on tonight. Well, on tonight, this being a Monday, of course. You've been to a bunch of these.
Yeah, it never gets old, man. It's literally one of my favorite days in the whole hockey calendar, just because, especially now on the other side of the COVID challenges, I think it's going to feel more real, but you just see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of people you maybe only see once a year at this event. Obviously, former players come out for, depending on who's being inducted. And so, I'm sure we'll see the likes of Jason Spezza, there to support a Daniel Alfredsson, along with Chris Neal and Chris Phillips. And I know there'll be a big Swedish contingent. Nicholas Lidstrom's planning to be in attendance. It's just a nice gathering. And obviously it's, the cherry on top of a career for these players. It's a big, big moment for them and their families. And, I'm a sentimental suck when it comes to stuff like this. So I really enjoy this night. And I actually would say as I get older, there's even a little bit more appreciation and joy, because now we're talking about inducting players that I have some degree of relationships with, that I've interviewed over the years, that I've watched the finer moments of their careers, covered their Stanley Cup finals or their Olympic tournaments or all those sorts of things. So you feel even a little bit more part of it, or a bit more direct connection to it when you're in my shoes going to it. So I'm pretty pumped for today, and hope it's a great night for everyone.
Hold the sentiment for the other side of our sports interaction segment. It'll just be us two. No David Bastel today. As always, this is just for people 19 and over. We ask that you play responsibly, and there will be a link to responsible gaming strategies in the description of this show. It's time for You Can Bet That.
Sports Interaction, Canada's Sportsbook, presents You Can Bet That with David Bastel. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Ontario only.
Welcome to You Can Bet That. It's just myself and Chris Johnston for this one. Remember to hit up sportsinteraction.com/SDPN for all of your gaming needs. There's a very interesting goal prop bet on the website. Cole Caulfield to 50 goals. If you are going to bet yes, it's at plus 650. No, minus 1,667. Right now, Cole Caulfield has 9 goals in 15 games this year, Siege.
Well, that my math isn't strong, but that puts him about on pace for 50, right? I mean, that's where this is coming from. I think. And what's interesting about that, of course, is you're dealing with a player. I don't think it'll be a surprise, put it this way, if we see Cole Caulfield score 50 goals at some point during his career in a season. The question is, can he make that leap now? And I think it's an intriguing bet, because I wouldn't rule it out myself. I think that obviously that the odds reflect that he's more likely than not to fall short of 50. But, we've seen a real magical kind of connection with Cole Caulfield and his head coach, Martin St. Louis. He's getting lots of opportunities to score. He loves to score. He's got a great shot, and he's sort of growing up before everyone's eyes. He's evolving into, a dangerous pro. And so I don't think it's beyond, for me, it's not a crazy stretch to think he could get there. It's difficult. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to avoid long, slumps, which come for every player at various points. But, the way he shoots the puck and power play usage and all that, I think that there's a chance he could do it.
Don't forget to check out sportsinteraction.com/SDPN for all the best odds before game, in game, and the best props. Again, it's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. We'd say thank you to David Bastel, but he's obviously not here. So thanks for watching. You Can Bet That. We talked about how the Vancouver Canucks are not in great shape. they're still not in a good place right now. Losers of their last 3 on this Canadian road trip, this Eastern Canadian road trip. Now they're going towards Buffalo. They'll be playing there tomorrow, I believe. And it's not looking good for this team. I mean, I caught a bit of the Canucks Leafs game. I caught a bit of a Canucks Canadiens game too. This Canucks team just looks awful. They're not playing for each other. They're just defensively, they're not good. There's just so much wrong with this team.
Yeah, and it just feels like we're getting to the point, Julian, where something has to give. They've won 4 out of their 16 games to start the year. I know they've picked up a couple additional points with losses in overtime and what have you, but they're in a worse spot arguably now than they were a year ago when they fired everybody, right? Jim Benning and his staff in the front office and Travis Green at the time, the head coach. And you just wonder if they're getting back to that position where they have to pull the trigger on more changes. Jim Rutherford gave a radio interview last week in Vancouver, made some headlines, pretty publicly, I would say, questioned some of what's gone on with his head coach, Bruce Boudreau, in terms of the players being organized and ready to play. He also had another part in that interview that maybe didn't get as much attention, which was just saying that it might be time to send a message to the players at the end of this road trip. Well, we were going to get there this week with Tuesday's game, as you mentioned, against the Sabres being the last of a 5-game trip. And so, I think that this could be a big week as the Canucks return home and management figures out what it's going to do. It's not a hot take at this point to say that Bruce Boudreau appears to be on borrowed time there as the head coach. He's in the final year of his contract. I know they're also paying Travis Green still, but that's the easy move, I would call it, to pin it on the head coach, to bring someone else new in. We've heard Jim Rutherford in a couple actual interviews sort of question how the training camp went and things like that, which generally fall under the purview of the head coach. I wonder about bigger changes though, too. I mean, Bo Horvat has had a tremendous start to this year, filling the net to the tune of more than everyone in the league, except for Connor McDavid. And he's in a contract year too. And so, at what point are they more considering moving on from him potentially as a trade piece? Obviously they have some other players if they want to trade some of their good players. Where they're in trouble is having too many players making too big of a salary that aren't able to make that impact at this point in their careers. And so something's got to give. You just feel the pressure mounting around them. Just getting a feel at Saturday's morning skate here in Toronto. Talking to a few of the guys quietly. Just that I think everyone's looking around waiting for something to happen, and so I suspect that will come sooner than later for the Canucks.
It is wild considering last year Bruce Boudreau hailed as a bit of a mini savior with how everyone was going on with the Bruce there it is chance. And now he's in a position where his time may very well be up. I mean, he never seemed as if he was Jim Rutherford's guy. So, and plus the fact that his contract expires at the end of the year plays into it too. Just a bit of a weird 1-year situation for Bruce Boudreau if it trends the way that it's looking to trend.
Right. One, look, he was hired. He's an older man, and he was hired to be there for a short-term fix, essentially. Like this was kind of what was designed. I mean, obviously, I think they expected this season to go better than it has in terms of wins and losses, but it wasn't a long-term decision when he came in. I should say my own opinion is I don't think that there's a coaching issue here. I think that it's a roster construction issue that dates back to the previous administration. Maybe if we're going to find fault in the current group, it's that they maybe thought they were going to be better than they were, that they could just patch it over and keep going. And, that might have, that appears like it was a mistaken view of where things are at. Plus, they signed JT Miller to a long-term deal. That already looks like a questionable decision. And you're only, a quarter of the way into, a contract that now has 7+ years remaining on it. So there's a lot of problems in Vancouver. The obvious thing from afar, and I realize there's pressures financially and all these types of things, is just why not do a rebuild? I mean, the other thing that's happening on a parallel track here is Connor Bedard is putting up basically a goal and 2 assists a game right now in the Western Hockey League. He happens to be from Vancouver, is a Canucks fan. I mean, something good could come out of the smoldering wreckage of what exists there right now in terms of potentially getting a generational player, or at least a very, very, very high end player added to your organization. And so I wonder if they actually do finally embrace a rebuild. And what's especially weird is we're here on Hockey Hall of Fame Day, and they're, the Sedins are being celebrated. Roberto Luongo, 3 key members of the organization, the Canucks organization, that really, when that team had a chance to win a Stanley Cup, should have won a Stanley Cup, in my view, in the early 2010s. They were that good, winning President's Trophy, got to Game 7 of the final in 2011 against Boston. Is that the organization hasn't had a coherent plan since those players basically moved on or moved into the later years of their career. Obviously Luongo was traded back to Florida. The Sedins aged out, and they've just avoided going towards a rebuild. And you wonder how things might be different had they done it sooner. But what's that old saying? The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. To start down the road towards something great now. And so I do wonder, with the way this season has started, with the way last season went, with a new front office in place led by Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, if they embark on a new direction, because it seems to me that the fan base there is just screaming for it, just wanting a plan, wanting to strip this thing down and start fresh and, build up through the draft.
I wonder, just with the way this roster is constructed now, if you have to offload that many assets to make sure you get to the bottom. They seem bad enough.
It's fair, but they have some assets that, would have appeal. Now, it would be really difficult to trade a Quinn Hughes or Elias Pettersson, Thatcher Demko, some of the players that are, I guess they're not young anymore, moving into the middle stretches of their career, but have shown promise. I mean, those players would have value, would bring back a lot. I think that the challenge is they have some older guys on their blue line that might be difficult to move it with their contracts, things of that nature. But yeah, I mean, you're right. They don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, because they're having a difficult time winning now, but I think they could speed things up, because right now, to me, even though it's been a really tough start, they're still good enough to finish from here on in at 500 and then finish, somewhere, say like the 10th worst team, and be picking 10th or 11th or 12th in the draft. And they're still good enough not to be at the bottom of the league. But management might intervene and make sure that doesn't end up being the case. And, that's really the question, I guess, that they have to answer here in these next few months.
We'll have to wait and see with the Vancouver Canucks, a team that has turned into one of the more interesting stories to start off the year. I can't imagine they'll be talked about much in our future contenders and pretenders show later on this month around American Thanksgiving. Yeah, I don't think they'll be there. Yeah,
those will be one of the ones that we don't even have to put 5 seconds of thought into, I would guess.
No, sorry, Vancouver. Actually, one other thing before I move on here. There's one tweet I saw from Samantha Chang, who hosts Game Over Vancouver, also hosts the broadcast, also as part of Zone Time on another platform with myself and Tic Tac Tomar and Avery and Arun and all that. She asked the question, on December 1st last year, the Vancouver Canucks had 7 wins. They are currently 4-9-3 with 7 games left in November. How many wins will they have on December 1st of this year? And the options she has are 5, 6, 7, and 8. Like, in terms of where the win count will be by December 1st of this year. I want to know your opinion. How many wins do you think they'll have on December 1st?
I'll say 6.
Okay, you and I are of the same brain, because I also voted 6.
Interesting, she didn't leave 4 as an option, so she's not allowing them to lose 6 in a row or whatever to finish the month. But no, I mean, look, they could have beat the Leafs. Like, this is the funny thing about this team, right? Is that they're ahead 2-0 in that game. They've blown so many multi-goal leads this year. Like, it's not as though they're losing every game 7-1. There is talent on the roster. There are individual players that can probably carry them to some wins, and so they're going to win a few more games. And look, if they make a change, sometimes that sparks something too. And so maybe one of these changes is coming before the end of November.
All right, we'll wait and see. I'm sure we'll talk about the Vancouver Canucks again sometime soon. Let's get to the World Cup of Hockey news. Before the weekend began, actually, the NHL announces that in the current environment, it is not feasible to host or to hold the World Cup in February of 2024, and their plan is to have the tournament in 2025. What insight do you have on the World Cup being shelved, CJ?
Well, this sucks, right? Let's call it as it is. There was supposed to be a World Cup in February 2021 at one point. They didn't have time to organize that. The NHL players are supposed to go to the Olympics in Beijing in 2022. Then we're told it's going to be a World Cup in February 2024. And what is the common denominator here? Just years and years and years are bleeding by. An entire generation of young stars in this league have yet to have a chance to represent their countries in a best-on-best tournament. Something profound in terms of the storytelling and the mythology around the sport is lost. I think, what international competition does is it allows to capture the minds and dreams of a lot of people that maybe don't watch hockey on a day-to-day basis, but because those tournaments elevate to a different level, I think, all of that, goes out the window. I think it's a real failing, quite honestly, of the league and the NHL Players Association that they haven't been able to find a way to get this done. Ultimately, it seems like they didn't want to make a hard decision here. Because essentially the European nations weren't going to play in a tournament that included Russia while Russia's invasion of Ukraine is ongoing. And the NHL didn't want to proceed with a tournament that didn't include Russia. Now, there were other issues too to do with European TV rights and things like that. I mean, look, there's a lot of logistics that go into organizing an event, but I think it was dead fundamentally because of that reason. And that's why I'm not particularly hopeful as we sit here today for February 2025. I mean, who among us can say where that Russian invasion will be at? Maybe it's still ongoing a year from now. I hope not for the people of Ukraine. But if that's the case, I don't see any world where we're talking about that World Cup being held then. And so what's the next best possible date? The Milan Olympics, February 2026 for best on best. I mean, you're getting into the point where it's legitimately possible. We've seen Sidney Crosby, for example, play his last game for Team Canada already. And, I had a chance to talk to Sid about it on Friday night, about a couple hours after this announcement. And, he was legitimately disappointed. He did point out, at least I've had lots of opportunities and he's won 2 Olympic gold medals. He was the MVP and won the World Cup in 2016 with Team Canada. But, he's thinking of others saying it's terrible that they haven't had the chance at all. And so, I'm distressed about this. I mean, I can't say I'm surprised. And I know we talked about it, on a recent episode that it sort of was trending in this direction, but it's a real loss for hockey. In my view, I think you'll lose a chance to get more kids playing because I do think, obviously in Canada, it's still hockey soaks up a lot of attention. In Finland, it does, but more and more countries, like even Sweden, there's other sports that are more popular, that kids are going to be more inclined to play. And so I get sometimes in the moment, these decisions are about business and the dollars of the day, but I think that there's too often not the longer term view taken about the value of these sort of tournaments. And and the players themselves are upset about it, which is important too. As long as if players like Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews didn't care to do this, it wouldn't matter. But the players want these opportunities, and they're missing out on them too.
I can imagine. Yes, of course. When I think of current environment, you nailed it on the head with everything going on between Russia and Ukraine. I mean, that ultimately is kind of spelled out right there in the statement. And I mean, obviously, imagining an international tournament without Russia. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
But what do you think? Like, do you think if they had a World Cup in 2024, just for argument's sake, without a Russian team, like, would that still be a viable competition? Like, what would you think?
No, I mean, Russia is one of the biggest hockey powers ever. Like, it wouldn't be right, or it wouldn't be a true best on best competition without Russia. Let's be real. Let's be real.
Right, but you can't have the competition with Russia under the current world circumstances, right? There's just no way. I mean, we're distant from it over here in North America, but Finland shares a massive border with Russia. If you're living in Finland today and you see them invade another country for no good reason, essentially, it's not hard to go like, well, then why wouldn't they do it to us? or, you know, I'm sure Swedes and Czechs feel the same. I mean, Dominik Hasek's been very outspoken about this, you know, in Czechia. And so I think, yeah, I guess I was giving the NHL a pass a little bit, but the more I've thought about it, I just think that you still go ahead without a Russian team. I think that would have been the way to go. It makes its own statement, right? I mean, hockey actually, when you look at what other sports have done with Russian athletes, you know, hockey's taken a pretty mild approach, and I get it. We're talking about some of the biggest stars in the game. But, you know, would make a pretty powerful statement had they held the tournament without that country.
I don't disagree with that viewpoint, especially with everything going on. The only other step I would think is that I still see the World Cup as this lesser event to the Olympics. Like, no matter how the NHL tries to sell the World Cup of hockey, even if we lived in a world where a Russia-Ukraine conflict did not exist, and they were like, well, you know what? We're not making the Olympics happen. We're putting all these teams in the World Cup. I don't know. It's going to take a while for me to really see that as the best on best international competition. It'll do, but, you know, look, at this point, if we have to wait till 2026 for true best on best competition at the Olympics, even if it means by then Sidney Crosby won't be available, that at least I recognize that as a real best. I mean, it's unfair to say real best on best, but as the true best on best competition. Because at the end of the day, I mean, not only do those players want those opportunities to represent their country, a lot of them, I'm sure, want that opportunity to hold an Olympic gold medal. Like, how many people do you know? How many hockey players have you gone around who've said like, you know what, man, my dream was to win a World Cup of hockey trophy? I don't think it's the same reputation as an Olympic gold medal. It's not. Well,
it's not, because there's been no consistency, right? Like, they had a tournament in 1996, and then in
2004,
and then 2016. Like, if you don't give people a chance to watch it and understand it and have some narrative built through it, I mean, you don't have anything that matters, right? But this is what this was supposed to be. Like, let's just for a minute imagine a world where everyone gets their shit together, because like there is money to be made here too. So like, there's business 100%. Interests here, and it's also important for the lifeblood of the sport. Imagine if every 2 years we had a best on best. You know, if it was a World Cup in 2024, and then the Olympics in 26, and then the World Cup in 28, and the Olympics in 2030, you know, then what you have is you have a story being told throughout those. One country will fail, and there'll be a redemption arc. There's, you know, it gives people an idea of what it is. And I think that you can build the World Cup into something that matters more, but you have to have it on a consistent basis. I mean, it's basically ad hoc when we feel about it right now. You know, 2004 was to raise some funds before a year-long lockout. I mean, that the impending lockout hung over the entire tournament. Literally the day after the gold medal game in that event, the players were essentially locked out, and we didn't see meaningful hockey played for a calendar year in North America. So, you know, it's got to be prioritized. It was supposed to be prioritized, and that's where it's just hard not to feel some level of disappointment. And you know, I want to see these guys. Like, I wanted to see, like Sidney Crosby was mentioning that there was some talk of him on a line with McKinnon and McDavid. That was, you know, when there was discussion for the Olympic tournament 2022 that didn't happen. I mean, you want to see that, right? You want to see the U.S. team, you know, which is probably stronger than it's ever been, just in terms of the star power in a league that are American born. You know, Finland has become a country on the rise in the world when you look at the World Championships, the World Juniors, and those types of things. But, you know, what could they do at a best on best with Mikko Rantanen and Miro Heiskanen and all the great players? So I want to see that. And I just feel like, who knows? I mean, I don't know when it's going to be, honestly. I hope it's the Olympics in 2026, but at this stage, like who can even say? Like it's just so often it's not been a priority when push came to shove, or it's not been valued above the other conditions that are at play when they're making those decisions. So, yeah, I just wish they cared about it more, as much as I do, and as I think the players do, that would ultimately stage these events.
That's well said, and we'll leave it there. One more thing before we get to Ask CJ. I did say, you know, hold on to your sentimental thoughts about Hockey Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Any thoughts on the incoming class with Daniel, Roberto, some of those guys that we've both seen in their heyday.
Well, just actually a real fine group of gentlemen when we talk about the players going in, that I had a chance to deal with. I mean, look, it's not a coincidence.
The NHL players, mind you, because I didn't even mention Rika Salonen and of course Herb Carnegie going in as a builder.
Exactly. And so, the players that I dealt with, I mean, it's not a coincidence. I mean, Swedes are among the classiest people you could meet, and three of these men are Swedish. Roberto Luongo is, low-key hilarious, was always, a good time through his time in the league. And so I think it's a fun class. I mean, if we look historically, it's maybe a little bit of a shift. It's the first class in quite some time, I believe, that no members have won the Stanley Cup going in there. That's going to become the norm just by math. With 32 teams in the league, not every great player is going to be able to get their name inscribed into that trophy. And so I think that this shows a little of that shift. And obviously, three of them played in one game, or had they won that game for the Canucks, that they would have won the trophy. Daniel Alfredsson was part of the mighty Senators in 2007 that, I think were ultimately undone. They had about a 10 or 11 day break, Julian, between winning the Eastern Conference final and starting the Cup. And they started slowly in the Stanley Cup final and just never found their way and lost to Anaheim.
Mm-hmm.
I heard Daniel Alfredsson say at the Hall on Friday when he was available that he has some regrets about the way game one went. Like they just weren't quite ready. And anyway, I mean, they were all very close, I guess is the point, and they all did win Olympic gold medals. So, pretty accomplished group. I don't take any issue with their credentials getting there. And it's cool to see three members of one team going together. That's unusual. You have twin brothers going in together. The Sedins really, I think, revolutionized to some degree the way hockey's played. We've seen it go more towards a possession game. Long gone are the days of Don Cherry, dump it in, dump and chase and get it. And one of the things the Sedins were real pioneers of is obviously knowing where each other were on the ice and cycling the puck. We see that now the best teams in the league all try to play that way in the offensive zone. I think a lot of that comes out of, what they and the Canucks were able to do, 10 plus years ago. So it's a unique class, and I think it'll be cool with everything going on with Borje Salming that you mentioned, that it's going to have such a Swedish flavor to it, because it all just kind of seems to be coming together in a nice way to celebrate this group of players.
You mentioned Henrik Lundqvist as a guy who could be eligible for next year's class. Is there a player that you would like to see make the Hall of Fame next year?
Well, Lundqvist is my only slam dunk among first-year eligibles. So I think there is a chance there potentially to get into some players that have been available over the years and been passed over for whatever reason. For me, it's Alex McGillney. That's the player I would most like to see go in among those that have been overlooked. I don't really get how it's gone on this long and he's not in there. It makes no sense to me. He was the true embodiment of a superstar. He scored 70 goal season, and was legitimately one of the best players in the league for a couple seasons there, which, so he maybe doesn't end up as high as some of the players that accumulate a lot of stats that play longer in the league. But when his high watermark for me was a huge barometer, there was a lot of intrigue. I talk about Borje Salming being, a pioneer for Swedish players or other Europeans. I mean, McGillney came over at a time when not a lot of Russians, played in the league, sort of the same era as Pavel Bure, and had to basically come over in the cloud of night to escape the situation in Russia at the time, the Soviet Union, and play in North America. So for all those reasons, I think he belongs there. There are a number of others. Curtis Joseph, I think, will get in eventually as a goaltender. Not tough. It's a tough haul for goalies. It's maybe one of the interesting things about Henrik Lundqvist. I think a lot of goalies have been overlooked over the years, maybe a little more difficult for them to gain inclusion. But yeah, it's going to be, I'm sure that'll be a debate for another day. Next June is when they'll pick that. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of clarity into the process, right? It's a private vote. You have to get, I believe, 14 out of 17 votes from the selection committee to go in. And we don't ever see the voting tallies or know why decisions are made. So we're kind of guessing from the outside about why a player is included or even not included.
Let's get to Ask CJ. It's the segment we do on Mondays where we take in questions from viewers like you. Like for viewers like you, like from PBS. I was able to incorporate that. That was funny. Let's get to some questions from Discord and Twitter. This one from Goalie Giant, speaking of the Hall of Fame. With another Hockey Hall of Fame induction ceremony taking place, the hockey world is once again reminded that women are an afterthought in the hockey world, as they still only have 2 inductee spots, and it's very rare those spots are used. If the goal of the hockey world and media is to bring equality to hockey, then where's the pushing from those with influence to expand the spots from 2 to 4, and there being an effort from those on the committee to use their positions to acknowledge women's accomplishments in hockey?
Fair question. I certainly wouldn't take any issue with increasing the cap of players involved. And what has been a little unusual is there have been years where there was no new female inductees. And so obviously at a certain point in time when the specific category was built, you would think that there would be a lot of players that would be up to be inducted. And I think that there's certainly a lot more room for that to happen. So, I'm not standing in the way of that. I would love to see. It was insane for how long you weren't seeing women's players inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame. They've at least made a correction there. Riikka Salonen, who's going in, is the first European female player to be inducted, but there's still plenty more opportunities, I think, to honor the great women of the game, and obviously there's players retiring every year, so there's new fresh players as well. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done with that wing in particular.
Goalie Giant from Discord, thank you for that question. From producer Clark, who doesn't just have the producer tag for any reason. He produces the Rod Peterson Show online. With your prolific minor hockey career in mind, has that translated to any significant senior or men's hockey accolades in recent memory?
No, that's a definitive no. And let's face it, even my prolific minor hockey career was not that prolific. I don't want to be seen as though I'm bigging myself up. I had one very notable moment, but I didn't threaten to play in the Ontario Hockey League, the National Hockey League, basically anywhere that you weren't paying to play in Cobourg was the only place I was going to be. But no, I really, I've let it lapse too long, but I haven't played hockey in years. Mostly just due to the schedule, traveling a lot. There wasn't really an opportunity because hockey season recreationally overlaps with hockey season professionally. But I'm intrigued to maybe get out there a bit. I saw there was an Eric Lindros tournament that our buddy Steve Dangle had the Rachel's Raiders back in again, raised a ton of money for Easter Seals, which is great. And, I had a chance to be part of that. It just didn't line up this year for my schedule. But yes, added to the list of things I'd like to do is get to play a little bit more hockey, although I don't think there'll be too many exploits worth talking about here once I do.
What about summer beer leagues? What about ball hockey? Those options exist.
Yeah, the summers for relaxing, traveling. I mean, look, I can't complain. It's just every choice, everything you do is something you can't do, right? Time is finite, and so I just haven't prioritized it enough. But I usually get on skates a couple times a year and get out and skate. Sometimes we rented ice with my nieces and nephews and family. And so I still skate now and again, but I haven't played in any sort of recreational beer leagues or anything like that.
All right. Well, if you're ever, it'd be fun to play a ball hockey game together. I can't skate, but be fun if we were on opposite ends for a ball hockey game. We should do like an SDPN street hockey event, like in Toronto somewhere, like maybe outside like Adam's house or something.
Yeah, we'll just clear all the cars off Adams Street, and I'm sure his neighbors won't mind.
Yeah, I'm sure between him and I'm sure he's like the mayor of the beaches anyway. He might as well just do it. Anyway, DMax74 on Twitter. I've been wondering this for a long time. How does voting for the 3 stars of the night work? Who are the attending media that get to vote on it?
So each home team is responsible for the 3-star selection. And then each team does it a little differently. I think a lot of it is done just by the local broadcast team on a home game. I think that they tend to be the ones who pick the 3 stars. The occasional team does rotate it among media members covering the game. And in what is now a pretty long career and that has included a lot of games, I've only ever had to do it once. And it was at Joe Louis Arena during the Stanley Cup final. It was either 2008 or 2009, one of those back-to-back series with Pittsburgh. and I had to pick the 3 stars and also file at the buzzer. And I just remember being so nervous about it. You want to get it right. You want to do justice. But typically it's not done by at least a print reporter on press row, but Detroit did do it at least at that point in time. And I did it that once, but I think usually it's the broadcast crews that do it.
Next one from Brittany Lawton. When is it an acceptable time to put up your Christmas tree?
Well, you're late if you haven't done it already.
You're late?
Brittany, I mean, what? We're at November 14th. I think
your Christmas is like a month away.
You're well within your rights to be getting into Christmas spirit now.
Oh my Lord. A Christmas tree now?
I got to tell you, there's a couple houses on my street that have Christmas lights up. And
okay.
I'm fine with that.
I mean, anyway, okay, so you're late at this point. I still find it really weird
with you're late, but you're well within the go zone right now. I mean, it's mid-November.
I still think it's so weird that people decide to celebrate Christmas now, and then when Christmas is over, like December 26th, we just act like it never happened. Like, that blows my mind. It doesn't make sense.
I'm not one of those. I love Christmas, so
yeah,
I'll be celebrating into January.
That's how you do it. Like, for me, it's like, okay, late December, and then after Christmas Day, like into the new year, like you're still celebrating. But people will go off in November, and then December 26th, it's like, all right, get out of my house.
Well, it's different if you're American too, right? Because if you live in the U.S., you still have Thanksgiving coming, so it would feel weird to have Christmas trees up at Thanksgiving. So I think it may be a little bit more bookended in the U.S. where, basically the third week of November, you do Thanksgiving and then you can roll into Christmas. But up here in Canada, I mean, we got a big gap. We got a big gap from our Thanksgiving to Christmas.
But that's okay.
No, come on. It's look at, we barely have sunlight right now. It's gonna snow here soon. It's getting cold. You gotta. It's
gonna snow where you're at soon. It's already snowing where I'm at.
Right, and that's what I mean. I'm just saying, like, you got to have something to lift the spirits. And so I think if that's putting up a Christmas tree, dialing in the Christmas pop album on Spotify, like that's all fair game. I've already had Christmas music playing at my house like for 2 weeks now.
Oh, so you've been playing a lot of Band-Aid these last few weeks? Do they know it's Christmas time at all? Just nothing but that in your house.
I'm just saying it's allowed. It's totally fine. I'm not ashamed to admit
it. Do you have a Santa Claus outfit?
No, but I would absolutely wear one. I mean, I've only got a Batman.
You should wear a Santa Claus outfit. You have the beard, so you might as well do it.
Well, it's still got lots of time for December episodes. Maybe I'll dress up.
Next one from Darcy on Twitter. First to 500 points, Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner. For those who aren't aware, Matthews is at 472 points. Mitch Marner, 473 points.
And what's fascinating about that is they've just been split up. I mean, typically these guys play almost all their minutes together. But right now, when they're within 27 points, 28 points of 500, they're playing apart. So it's a real, there's actually more intrigue. They won't be picking up points on all the same goals. I'm going to say that Marner gets there ahead of Matthews, mostly because he's got a small head start. He tends to compile more assists. And I don't know, you got to pick one or the other. It's going to be close, though.
Next one from Red Shark Pack on Discord. Is there any update on the NHL's investigation into the 2018 Canadian World Junior team?
No update. The line I've heard Gary Bettman use a couple times is we're closer to the end than the start or something along those lines. But I do think that you're going to see some resolution to that certainly during the season, but I don't have any specific knowledge of when exactly that will be that process will be completed. I think to some degree they might be waiting on an investigation that London police are doing as well into that same event to see basically what police action is taken, and then go from there.
All right. Next one from Bloody Sushi _X on Twitter. It's a really interesting name. What's going on with Nashville?
I mean, that's open-ended.
That's very open-ended, to be honest with that. They did not add any more context to that. But the Predators, 7th in the Central Division. I know UC Saros is not getting off to a strong start this year. I guess they were probably trying to figure out like why they're not playing that well.
Right. I don't have the answer, honestly. I haven't done a lot of deep dive there, and I don't mean to punt on the question, but I don't have a lot of insight. I would say this. I didn't see them as automatic locks to make the playoffs to start the year. So I'm sure this is a slower than expected start from the organization. But you know, they kind of are in the mushy middle. So let's give this a couple more weeks to shake out, and we'll dig into each team.
All right. I think that's probably a good way to look at that. And I think, well, there's one last one if you want to take this one, but I think so here, listen to this question and debate whether or not this should be answered here or a segment on its own. Who are CJ's top 5 rookies thus far? This is from Giant Pie 12 on Discord.
Yeah, let's shelve that because I think we could.
Yeah.
Not because I actually like the question. I appreciate the question, but I think we should give those rookies some love and not just try to do it, jam it into a 12-second answer right now.
Yeah, that's a really good. You see, this is us trying to plan the show out like we normally do on the CJ Show, which we thank you all for listening and paying attention to and watching however you consume the episode, because that's going to do it for our Monday edition. We'll be back on Thursday with stick taps and other fun stuff on the SDPN. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to the SDPN YouTube channel and to subscribe to the Discord and buy stuff off the SDPN store. Can you show that mug one more time? Big Money Siege?
That's Ridic.
That's Ridic. You already know what it is. For CJ, I'm Julian saying so long and peace.
The Chris Johnston Show.
Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada's sportsbook.
Inside the game, twice a week. Follow Chris on Twitter @ReporterChris. And follow Jillian McKenzie @JK McKenzie.
The Chris Johnston Show.